Welcome you back to the Patrick Netherton Show right here on 1130 The Tiger. He is Rogers Hampton. I am Patrick Netherton. Pleased to welcome in one of our favorites. If we had a Patrick Netherton Show guest Hall of Fame, Tom Hart would be on the Mount Rushmore of guests. He's the best. SEC Network, now XFL commentator, play-by-play man extraordinaire, and a man who will drop an innuendo for you if you need one. He is Tom Hart. Tom, what's up, my friend?
There are no innuendos in Walk This Way, whether you prefer that version or my favorite Run DMC. They pretty much come straight out and tell you what they're talking about.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. Let's start with last night. Did you feel like you were calling a Rockets game? 59 threes? I mean, what?
Yeah. You know, Nate Oates is one of these guys that is deep in the analytics, and he preaches to his guys what are good shots and what are bad shots. And just a very cursory glance out there for folks who maybe haven't read the booklet. Like, what it comes down to is the value of the shot that you take,
right? Points
per possession, right? So free throws have the highest value that you can take. We'd love getting to the free throw line. Up close twos that have a high percentage of going in, that's a pretty good value. And three-pointers when you can knock them down. Well, the problem with Alabama last night in their game against Auburn is they didn't have anybody they could go to inside.
Yeah.
So that meant their offense was going to be all outside. And dang it, if they didn't darn near go in and knock off the 11th ranked team in the country on their home court, it was an amazing, well, just an amazing game for me, Patrick, but it also made an amazing, look into the modern analytics and the value of the 3-point shot versus what we are all kind of used to.
Yeah, I mean it's a point and a half, or it's 150% of a two. So, I understand the thought process, and it's part of the reason why when you watch kids nowadays shoot free throw line jumpers or elbow jumpers, anything, you're kind of surprised. The mid range game is kind of evaporated from basketball, and it's coming from the NBA on down.
There was a really awesome social media exchange prior to basketball season starting. And it was awesome because everyone involved was educated on the subject. And it started with some guys that are very analytical, talking about the theory of jump shooting and scoring buckets in the NBA. This topic of conversation we're on right now. And basically, as Nate Oates believes, and as the analytics guys have you believe, a 2-point shot, a mid-range 2-point shot is a bad shot.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get the same return on your investment. Well, guess who jumped into the conversation? Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant jumps in the conversation on Twitter and says, well, wait a second, guys. I think 2-point shots are great shots because I take positive 2-point shots that I'm confident in. Now, the immediate and correct answer is yes, but you're Kevin Durant.
Right. You're a little bit of a freak and an anomaly in this situation.
His point from the player's perspective was you get to the shot that you can get off with a lot of confidence. And if that means that they run you off the 3-point line and you take 2 dribbles and you pull up from 15, if it's going in at a high rate, that's a good shot.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting conversation if you want to, whether you're somebody who likes playing on the playground or you're coaching high school kids, or you just like watching the college and pro game. I think it affords you a new way to watch the game.
Yeah, Louisville had a shot chart the other day that was literally all layups and threes. I don't even think they attempted a mid-range jumper at any point in time. So that's what we've got. Thank Daryl Morey and the Houston Rockets Brain Trust for bringing us the all threes and layups thought process. Tom, what's life like trying to contain Andy Kennedy? I mean,
it's like guarding Michael Jordan. You just hope he doesn't go off on any given night. Don't make headlines is how I go into it.
Well, and you did. You had a very interesting exchange. And by the way, I want to compliment you on. I do this on this show a lot. I'll get onto a topic, we did a whole first segment that was just OJ jokes. And we never mentioned OJ, and we just kept talking about, how that kind of humor really, will slice you and all. I mean, we were doing all of that stuff. But I appreciate the fact that not only did Andy Kennedy misidentify the Ron Burgundy fathead, but then y'all leaned into it and went ahead and played off of it and kept it PG, but still a wink and a nod to everyone in the listening audience, which I enjoyed. So
I've found, this is just my personal theory, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but if you want to have fun during a game as a broadcaster, the best kind of jokes are the jokes that are appreciated by a percentage of the audience. And if they go over the head of another portion of the audience and they don't even know it's a joke,
right,
that's fine too.
Yeah.
Because you're not distracting from the game. You're just talking about, a guard taking it hard to the hole. That's all it is.
Yeah, spurtability, as the case may be. And by the way, not for nothing, but Ron Burgundy has a pretty solid porn stash anyway. So I could certainly see the confusion on AK's part. I certainly can get that.
There's also a point. There was also a point of that, real quick, Patrick.
Yeah.
That, may have been lost in the younger audience. So when we were among some of the millennials, as they say later, we did put them through the test. Do you know who Captain Kangaroo is?
Yeah.
And what I found was, and this applies to a lot of people in multiple genres, is you may not have ever seen Captain Kangaroo, and you may not actually be able to pick him out of a lineup, but Captain Kangaroo is somebody. It's a name that you should probably know for some reason.
Right.
So there's a recognition factor at play.
Yeah. Well, and I would imagine most of the people that were watching that game did recognize what was happening. Hey, I want to go back for a bit because you mentioned free throws, and the team that obviously we follow most closely here, LSU, that's kind of their MO. They get a lot of layups off of offensive rebounds, and they go to the free throw line a ton. That seems to be kind of their MO for winning games. What do you see when you watch them and you break them down? Is what they're doing sustainable and a style of play that can actually have success as they go into the NCAA tournament?
I think absolutely it's a style of play that can have success because of two I'll give you two reasons why, and I'll give you a caveat. As we all know, the reigning theory is that in the NCAA tournament, the possessions slow down, they're valued more, you have fewer possessions per game, you can't afford to turn the ball over, and you have to hit a high percentage of your shot. The exception there is if you're a good rebounding team, then you can afford an off night or two when it comes to bad shooting. LSU rebounds 36% of its own misses. It's the 11th best rate in the entire country. They don't have to be an elite shooting team to win because they're relentless on the glass. That style will play. Having a leader like Skylar Mays, that style will play. Having athleticism inside, that will certainly play. What won't play, and here's my caveat, is LSU wins close games, and they play a lot of close games. Just ask Virginia the folly of that, right? One year you lose to a 16 seed, the next year you're winning it all. Well, why does LSU play close games? We know Virginia does that because of the tempo that they play. LSU plays close games against mediocre teams because there are times where they decide either not to defend or they don't have the focus to defend. If you're going to have an off night in the NCAA tournament and you're not going to be focused on defending, then you better hope that that's against a 12 seed or lower. Because if that happens against a seed that is roughly your equal, you're not going to win.
Talking to Tom Hart, SEC Network, ESPN, XFL, which we'll get to in just a moment. Tom, I want a bookend for Virginia. I want them to have lost to a 16 2 years ago, win the championship last year. I want them as a 16 this year to beat a 1. Because look, they're not going to be, and they'll probably make the tournament, and they'll be a 12, 11, 10, something in that area. But can't we get them in as a 16 and let them just have some measure of revenge?
I think that would be wonderful. How would you feel if you were San Diego State and you drew Virginia?
What a meat grinder.
Yeah.
God bless. You know what? And here's the thing. Tony Bennett is much too good-looking of a man to play that style of basketball, right? He's much too suave and debonair to be playing this sort of root canal basketball. He needs to. They need a much prettier style of basketball to go with that man. Is all I'm saying.
Well, I disagree. I look at it from a different perspective. I look at coaches that play a different style, and you know what I see? I see guys who ruin suits. Like Tony Bennett is an attractive man who never sweats because there's no action, and he only needs to walk back and forth up and down the court, 40 times a game.
Right.
Bruce Pearl does that 120 times a game, and next thing you know, he's sweating through the shoulders of his suit. I think Tony Bennett has it absolutely figured out. And by the way, I applaud him for proving to anyone out there that casual dress is better than being knotted up with a tie, and he looks just as good without a tie on the sideline as what our bosses try to make us do.
Yeah, he's
shout out to my bosses. I know they're listening.
Yes, they are big fans of the Patrick Netherton show. That's why they've kept me in local radio for so long. Tom, XFL, man, tell me what, first week in the books. We've talked a lot about the innovations and the kickoffs and the replay booth being mic'd up, and you got you almost kill a Super Bowl legend and an NFL Hall of Famer down on the sidelines. Man, it was a pretty busy first week for you guys.
It was really busy. It was a very positive week. Over 40 million people tuned in across all of the telecasts. Our partners at Fox and FS1 did a wonderful job and put their top-tier talent on it. There's no doubt about that. It's a product that the television networks are taking seriously because the league takes itself seriously. Vince McMahon has invested a lot of money in this, and I think he's hired all the right people to run it. Starting Jeffrey Pollack, the president, does a fantastic job on the sales side. We're going to be in St. Louis for week 3. They're going to sell out their venue. There's going to be 27,000 people there. When Seattle has a home game, there's probably going to be 25,000 people there. I don't know what the crowd's going to look like this weekend in L.A., but the Chargers only average 25,000, maybe 26,000 since they moved into that building 3 years ago. So the local support has been fantastic, and Oliver Luck has done a great job hiring the coaches that understand what they're trying to accomplish by making this league appealing. Week 1 did not see a whole lot of offense.
A lot of unders.
A lot of unders, and there's an easy explanation for that in my mind. Number one, a couple of the key quarterbacks didn't play, and when you only have an 8-team league and you're missing a quarter of your starters, that can have an impact. Landry Jones will start for Dallas this weekend. Jonathan Johnson will likely start for that LA team. That happens to be the game that we have. So I think that's key for both. Pardon me, Josh Johnson, who spent 12 years in the NFL.
Right.
But the other thing to keep in mind is in the NFL, you have 4 weeks of preseason games. In college football, generally speaking, outside of some exceptions, there's some warm-up games, so to speak, where the better teams are heavy favorites early on. We all know about those. There was no such warm-up for these teams, so I expect a huge increase in efficiency week 1 to week 2. That's what we always hear during college football, right? Where the biggest jump a team is going to make is between the first game and the second game, and I expect the same to be said in the XFL coming into week 2.
Yeah, I would think so as well. And to be honest with you, Tom, I think the best thing the XFL did, besides a lot of the rule changes and whatnot, I think the best thing they did was get into the St. Louis market. That is a football-starving community that really supported the Rams when they were there and still feels slighted by Stan Kroenke taking the team and leaving. I feel like getting St. Louis as one of your markets is one of the biggest things that they did.
I agree with you. I thought that they could go a couple different ways, and they proved that they could go a couple different ways when trying to find their markets. Seattle has an incredible football fan base. Seattle and St. Louis have a lot of things in common, in my opinion, in that they support their local teams with not just ticket sales, but this incredible amount of civic pride. We drew a 7.4 rating in St. Louis on Sunday afternoon. We outdrew the Blues game, the defending champs. We outdrew their game from Saturday night, the night before, against the Stars, and I believe went overtime. And we did it in a game that ended up being 15-9. So, and I tell you one more thing that helps me believe that this league will have success is a lot of people tune in to the first day and the first game out of the curiosity factor, and the ratings were referenced in that. And then, representative of that, I should say. But then all those people came back the next day.
Yeah.
And the Sunday ratings were almost just as good across the board. even with one less game on network television. So I think that's big, and I hope people continue to buy into it. We're able to feed this insatiable diet that wants more and more football as much as they can get.
Well, I'll tell you honestly. I mean, St. Louis is big, and Vince McMahon's money is big, and the rules changes are nice, and you got some names or whatever. But honestly, I'm tuning in to listen to Tom Hart. I mean, let's just be honest. That's the big draw, I think, for most people that are watching the XFL.
You have an incredible taste. I don't know if it's incredibly good taste or bad taste, but you have incredible taste.
Well, based on my current size, I think I at least have an incredible appetite. I'm not sure how good my taste is. Brother, keep doing what you're doing. Keep AK under control, and we look forward to watching you this weekend for L.A. and Dallas.
Patrick, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, brother. Tom Hart, he's the best. Love that man.